The biggest question that every Raider fan wants the answer to. How are they going to perform in the 2025 NFL regular season compared to last year? They had the sixth pick in the NFL draft, of which they used on Ashton Jeanty. They got Geno Smith, pulled him over from the Seattle Seahawks, who had been productive the last couple of seasons. Geno has turned the ball over. We know that Seattle had been winning games, and he had gotten them to the postseason. The Raiders were 4-13 last year, obviously a poor team. That's why they picked so high in the draft and were able to take who many thought was the best playmaker in the draft in Ashton Jeanty. But how will the 25 season wind up for them? I overall am going to break it all down. It started off with their first matchup of the year at the New England Patriots. I think they get a win. They're on the road, Gillette Stadium against Drake May. We understand that Mike Vrabel is the head coach over there in New England now, and I think they get a win 22-17 week one. Unfortunately for them, there's going to be a string of losses in the schedule after this. I think the matchup against New England is a bit to their advantage, where on the outside, they're able to pick up Dante Thornton. What was that? One of the fastest players besides Calvin Johnson. He ran a 4.29 40-yard dash, one of two players ever to be 6'5", running below the 4.4 mark. So Thornton being able to take advantage. And then, of course, we know Brock Bowers in the middle of that offense and Ashton Jeanty. Geno's the type of guy to be able to produce offense, to be able to get the ball to those players. Week two, they're at home. Monday Night Football against the Los Angeles Chargers, a division rival, their first divisional matchup of the year. I don't like this matchup. I understand Max Crosby is one of the better edge players in the National Football League, coming off a tremendous season, got paid his bag, but Chargers coming in there with a Marshawn Hampton they recently selected, who was probably my favorite first-round pick overall. Thought that they might go with Will Johnson and pair Harbaugh with one of his former players, but they go with Hampton out of North Carolina, super productive, and I think he's going to run all over the Raiders in this matchup. I think a couple of turnovers from Geno Smith. On the defensive side of the ball, you would think that they're going to be a little bit improved, right? Christian Wilkins came over from Miami. They have in the middle of that defense. They've got Jermaine Pratt, who had been there in Cincinnati, Jeremy Chin. Right, we understand that the secondary should be better. Eric Stokes, a couple of these guys, right, the free agent sort of pickups from other teams amassing with the roster. It is improved, no doubt, but the rest of the conference is as well. So 1-1 to start the year for the Raiders. Week three at the Commanders. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game that the Raiders are able to hold Jaden Daniels inside the pocket, limit the big play, not see his legs just completely take over this football game. I have them losing 10-19 on the road at Washington, one of the better improved teams within the last 2 years, picking second overall, getting all the way to an NFC Championship game. What I want to see from the Raiders in that one, taking their shots. Washington is the type of team that wants to bend, don't break. They're going to hold you, rally tackle with Bobby Wagner in the middle of that defense. That's what he is known for. And then offensively, let Jaden find Debo and Terry McLaurin on the outside and be able to produce. So can they limit Jaden Daniels, keep that game close? I think they can, but it's just a matter of a road win at Washington is a tall task. At home against the Chicago Bears, this is a game that is winnable, of course. Chicago has been one of the worst teams in those tight score games. Matt Eberflus, as a matter of fact, set a record. He was 4-19, I believe the statistic was, the worst head coach in NFL history in one-score football games with a minimum of 21-score games. I have the Raiders, though, giving up a bunch of points, 32 to the Chicago Bears. Look, that offense, if you're not able to stop the run, they still can hit you. Colston Loveland and Cole Kmet going through the middle. Now Luther Burden, and that's along with Rome Odunze and DJ Moore. So is Ashton Jeanty gaining a little bit of stride? The Bears were susceptible to giving up a lot of big plays against the run last year. Not a great run defense, but a very good secondary. You know what exactly Chicago's going to try to do. They're going to try and stop that double-headed attack between Mostert and Jeanty to make Geno Smith beat him. Going to make him try to beat him with Dante Thornton. Meek, you beat him, getting the ball to Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers. Brock Bowers is one of my favorite players coming out of college. maybe the best college football tight end ever, there is a little bit of that weakness. Like TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds are very good in coverage, but they do not have the speed, the flat-out run ability that Brock possesses. But I do have the Raiders falling to 1-3 with a loss there in Week 4. Week 5, tough one against the Colts. We don't know exactly who's going to be starting in Indianapolis. Is it going to be Daniel Jones? Will it be Riley Leonard? Is it going to be Anthony Richardson? As of the recording of this video, just want to get this straight. I myself physically, and I'm in Los Angeles, but my real self, the version that's current time when you are watching this video, is in Africa. So if there are injured players that you're saying, why is he talking about? I am recording this video in advance because if you could imagine a trip to Africa, not going to have the cell service to be able to make. So this video is being pre-recorded. If there's any players that are injured and that comes up, that would change the game. Of course, that is going to happen, and I'm not aware of it as of now. But so back to current time, making this video for the predictions. I've got them losing 12-16 at the Colts in Indy. Jonathan Taylor, I think, is going to be very productive. Tyler Warren versus Brock Bowers, two of the better young tight ends gracing the National Football League. See Geno potentially turn it over a couple of times there. We know how good DeForest Buckner is in the middle of that defense. Colts being able to lean on running the football. This is that game where I want to see them lean on the outside. Get it to Thornton. Take your shots. Geno had Tyler Lockett. He had Jackson Smith and Jigba, DK Metcalf, a great receiving core, and that is, to put it bluntly, not anywhere near what he had in Seattle, what he's working with in Vegas. In Week 6, Raiders would currently be 1-4 heading into that matchup against the Tennessee Titans, who I've got being one of the worst teams in football once again next year. Taking Cam Moore, amazing number 1 pick in the draft, but that doesn't help you build around pieces, of course, around the guy that you just took number 1 overall. I do have them getting a win, moving up to 2-5, 20-14, getting that victory. This is the type of win that everybody needs, especially before they head into a road game at the Kansas City Chiefs. So I have the Raiders 3-4, moving up to 2-4 on the season before they head into Kansas City. Why I think they beat Tennessee. I think Max Crosby is able to come away with 2 sacks, a game-wrecking type play in that one. They're able to lean on Brock Bowers in the red zone. Dante Thornton and the Geno Smith connection is improving. Ashton Jeanty is posing the defense's major problems running the football, and he's been productive catching the football at Boise State. Don't forget, he has the ability to catch the ball coming out of the backfield too. So 2-4, game right before the bye week. At the Kansas City Chiefs. Team's been in the Super Bowl the last 3 years for a reason, because of Patrick Mahomes. Might say all you want about Travis Kelce being limited last year and on the decline. Still, Rashee Rice is coming back for them. They've got Xavier Worthy. There are just too many threats on the outside for the Chiefs on that vertical down the field, where I just see them being able to take it over the top over the likes of, like a new guy that I really like, Darian Porter out of Iowa State, right? A younger player. They've got a Landon Roberts. He's a good football player as well, but Kansas City being able to hold on 27-14, like it to be a little bit close, and then the Chiefs pull out a little bit late. So 2-5 through the first 7 weeks, not at all what Raider fans would be looking for. The biggest game that I might try and flip there is it's a tough loss against the Colts there. That could have had him at 3-4. So 2-5, the bye week hits at a great time. Try and reset before a game against the Jaguars. They got that losing that one again, dropping to 2-6, 18-24, a loss against the Travis Hunter and Trevor Lawrence-led Jacksonville Jaguars. Again, the threats, that is the theme of the AFC conference. It is the guys on the outside, the good quarterback play. Whether or not Trevor Lawrence improved or not, he's going to have more threats with Travis Hunter catching passes. Brian Thomas had to have improved off of what was a fantastic rookie season. They have Trayvon Walker on that side. They have Josh Hines-Allen. Jacksonville is limited productivity in other places, but certainly within those 4 names in terms of the duo and the wide receivers and the edge rushers, they are very good. So a loss against the Jaguars at home, dropping them to 2-6. I've got them in a very tough Thursday night football loss at the Broncos. Look, Mile High playing at that stadium against Bo Nix. This is one of those divisional matchups that you really get excited about. And heading up there to Denver. At this point, I think Jeanty is established himself definitely as a top 10 back, maybe in the 7 or 8 in the National Football League. I think Dante Thornton is one of the more underrated rookies coming into the league this year. You hear everyone talk about Ted McMillan and Matthew Golden, Emeka Buka, but working with that veteran presence in Geno Smith, who's not afraid to air the football out, but again, a loss to the Broncos. So 2-7 at this point. You're starting to think about next year and towards the future at the quarterback position. Geno Smith is not the answer. Look, I've got a max on this thing looking through it. The Raiders winning about 7 games. That division is the toughest in football, up there with the NFC North. Just winning that many games is going to be tricky. So at that point, 2-7. Monday night game against the Cowboys, a loss, a blowout loss, 9-32. Micah Parsons not healthy. They get Trayvon Diggs. Stopping that duo now, and George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb is going to pose very difficult to do. I like that Dallas interior pick in which they brought in Tyler Booker from Alabama. And this is a loss where you're just like, okay, a decent Cowboys football team. How can we play on Monday night? That one would be at home, as well as the next week. At this point, they're 2-8 against the Browns. Have it being tight. A lot of these Raider games, I don't have them scoring more than about 20 points, finishing in that range. I had the defense being improved, and you see these numbers that I've had them giving up haven't been astronomical on that defensive side of the ball. But Cleveland, Mason Graham in the middle, going to make it a bit tougher. I've got Jeanty for sure going under about 90 yards in this game. Graham in the middle of that defense. Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, that team is lacking, right? Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is not going to be back this year with that health scare. Very sorry to hear that from him. So a tough loss against the Cleveland Browns. So 2-9 at that point. Again, remember, we're thinking about draft positioning at that point. Is Arch Manning coming out? There's Lenora Sellers. There's DJ Lagway in the conversation. Drew Aller, Garrett Nussmeier, Cade Klubnik. This is going to be a very heavy draft. It's just a matter of who are going to be the top guys. Raider fans are absolutely going to be thinking about the future. How can we develop at that spot? Geno is not the guy for the future. I'll say it again. And so 2-9 at the Chargers, a tough game. Understand that. It was early in the year. I have them losing 28-13, able to, I think, maybe get off to a pretty good start. Maybe Max Crosby forces a takeaway. Pratt in the middle of defense gets a takeaway, but then the Chargers, just that ability. Joel Klatt talked about that Michigan team with the identity of Jim Harbaugh being able to be a boa constrictor. Maybe you're able to get some space in the beginning, but the defense over time is just going to basically suffocate teams. Time of possession, running the football, not turning it over. Very similar to what the Chargers were a year ago at that point. So that would drop them to 2-10, right, on the season. Week 14, I actually have them coming up with a huge win. You've been waiting for it. 2-10. What is this season? I have them with the win at home against the Denver Broncos. It all comes together on the offensive side of the ball. They're able to get the stops they need against Bo Nix and limit Troy Franklin, and Pat Surtain maybe gives up a deep ball to Dante Thornton. The height's certainly there and the explosive ability. That's a tough matchup all day. Brock Bowers over the middle of the field. This is, again, one of the more exciting offenses that just doesn't quite click together, in my opinion. So they get that win and move to 3-10 on the season. Then you're at the Super Bowl chance. 28-10 is what I have for that one. I think that Philly just has too many guys on offense. And Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Saquon Barkley, Goddard, that they're just going to be overwhelming. And then the pass rush, they might have lost Milton Williams. They might have lost that very good player, Josh Sweat, on the edge of that defense, but they're able to bring in Jahad Campbell from Alabama. They're able to bring in Ty Robinson from Nebraska. They still have Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis in the middle of that defense, along with the other dog in Nolan Smith. Back end, of course, they're going to have competition back there now for who's going to be starting. They've got Reed Blake. Like, I'm not an Eagles fan. I just know that roster quite well. It is the best in football, in my opinion. Up there with the Lions. The Chiefs are good. The Texans, and some of the best in football. So a loss that drops them to 3-11 on the year. Again, still right there in that focal point, that matchup for draft positioning coming up soon here. But at the Texans, I think it's a blowout. They lose 37-13. This is a matchup where you can maybe see what the Texans are against one of the very good football teams. Again, look at that stretch there. At the Chargers, Broncos, at Eagles, at Texans. That might arguably be the toughest stretch in football next year. So a loss against the Houston Texans, who, man, with Nico Collins and Tank Dell truly is back. And then the two Iowa State kids that they just took in the second and third round, Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll from Houston, taking two guys from the same receiving corps that put up like a combined 4,000 yards the last 2 years there, catching passes from Rocco Becht at Iowa State. The next week, they're playing the Giants. At that point, they are 3-12 on the year. The winner of this game might be screwing themselves a little bit out of some very good draft position. So I have them losing 17-13 in great fashion for the Raiders. They're able to end up losing that game. You're thinking you're excited about that draft. Now, who's the quarterback at that point for the New York Giants? Is it going to be Russell Wilson? Is it Jackson Dart getting some playing time at the end of the year? Jameis Winston? Giants have an absolute brutal schedule throughout the year next year. They play the NFC North, have to play those 4 games, as well as the 6 within the division. So that's 3 playoff games against the NFC North, as well as 4 from the Eagles and the Commanders. That's 7 just to start off. And then last game of the year, here you go, Raiders fans. The Raiders get a win against the Kansas City Chiefs at home. They hit them across the face. One of the reasons I think they might get this win is it's possible the Chiefs have it already locked up like they have in years past, but the Raiders are due for a spectacular performance at some point this year. The offense clicks together with Jeanty, with Brock Bowers, and Geno Smith connecting the defensive side of the ball, doing well. But overall, 4-13, same record once again for the Raiders. But if you are a Raiders fan, if you're someone that I know that's a Raiders fan that might have watched this video, you have a great quarterback class coming out next year. This is not the year to go 7-10, go end up drafting 12 or 13, and you lose out and just being placed in there to get some of the better quarterback options to select in a draft. Being worse this year is absolutely worth it. Again, you're able to keep piling on talent, because then that quarterback comes in there, whether it's Nussmeier, whether it's Klubnik, whether it's Sellers, coming in there with Jeanty, with Brock Bowers, Thornton, and you're continuing to build, and the Raiders are going to be able to combine in that division. There's Bo Nix, there's Herbert, there's Mahomes. You can't have a lack of a quarterback. You need to draft a guy that can compete. That is the only route to the Raiders getting back to where they had been in the 70s and been one of the forces in the NFL. I grew up hearing stories about how good those Raiders defenses were. Great quarterback play. So 4-13 on the year. Hang in there, Raider fans. It's going to come back full circle and looking at a very good quarterback. So thank you so much for watching this. 4-13 for Las Vegas. Make sure to tune in for a whole lot more football content. We are going through it all. Remember, I am currently not in the United States. This has been recorded a couple weeks prior, but we're getting ready for the NFL season, and I will see you for the next one. Appreciate it. Best player in college football. That Georgia and Ohio State game, New Year's Eve, is going to be a classic.
Josh Blunder, hi everybody, I'm Josh Blunder. To the 40, 35, 30, Espinosa to the 20.